Here we go on CD2. This must be on a trip out west where there's a ski lift. That might be in Albuquerque, but I kind of doubt that. I don't know just where that might be. Boy, what is this side? Something pass. It's on old US 40. Boy, this is on a mountain trip, and I don't know where that is, but that's a beautiful view, isn't it? I'm trying to think of what model Pontiac that was. That was about a 51, I think. Can you imagine an old couple born in 1888 and 1891 and in 1951 taking a trip of this magnitude? Hadn't been off the farm very much. They saw life evolve from horse and buggy days clear up through the horseless carriage and into 51 with modern automobiles. There weren't any air-conditioned automobiles at that time yet, but soon afterwards there were. I'm trying to figure out what trip this might have been. I know at that time I would have been 20 years old. There's Grandma and Grandpa Armour, Otto and Lydia. Center of the U.S. That's out in Kansas, I believe. I think they stopped in Kansas at a people's name by the name of Kester. There were two brothers and two sisters, bachelors and maids, that lived west of us that had a brother in Kansas. And I'll bet you that's where they stopped. He was quite a successful farmer out in that area. That's got to be some of the grain storage area out in that part of the country. Those were probably government bins set up at that time to store grain. The government through the years had storage facilities for grain, some of their farm programs. Quite modern farmsteads for back in 1951 out there. Big elaborate barns. Two-lane roads, nothing but two-lane roads back in those days. If we could read those signs, we'd have a little more understanding of where we are. There's a mixture of pleasure and business. There's a grain terminal, and in the foreground are boats. This had to be some old town with majestic houses and nice street with old trees. Well, we're back home. They're unloading the car. Now this is Ruby's car. Here we're combining soybeans. Otto had a combine and Eldon had a combine. That's me on the first combine and Eldon probably on the second combine. I think that's probably Owen Caston's truck in the background. Well, there's two trucks back there. No, that'd be Eldon's old 1-ton truck and our old 1.5-ton truck back there. Unloading. The augers the grain up into the truck. In a good day's run, 2 combines could combine 40 acres. There we're unloading ear corn at a bin, probably down at Grandma and Grandpa's place. There Grandpa's pulling some shucks away. There we're picking ear corn with a 2-row mounted corn picker on a WD-45 tractor. That's me manning the outfit. It's kind of a dirty job, so you just stand way up as high as you could to stay out of the dust. Another shot of the same thing. See the ears flying out of the elevator into the wagon. Wagons had hoists on them. See, we were hoisting the wagon up to dump the corn into the elevator. I got a little carried away with the hoist and ran too much over the back of the wagon. Okay, let's see. Who would that be? This has got to be... Well, I'm not sure. That's John Armour, I think. This is another scene back at Grandma and Grandpa's on the east side of the house. Grandma loved roses, and there were some along the east side of the house. Out at the north fence, just scattered all around. Well, we must be on a trip again. I'm not sure about that. That must be a scene on that trip. This must be on a trip out to Albuquerque to Gordon and Lucy's. He worked at a factory. No, well, that's down in Florida. There's El John Motel. That's a motel that Else Farner and John Fullington had in partnership. That's John's car sitting in his carport. So those previous pictures were down in Florida. There's another shot of the El John Motel. They owned that motel for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years probably, and John managed it. I don't know if they built it, but they were in partnership with it. There's a picture of John and Adeline and Annadelle. Doesn't it smell good? John was Adeline's husband. Verda was Eldon's wife, and John and Verda were brother and sister. So you had so Annadelle and was John and Adeline's daughter. John and his Siblings Dennis and Judy were Bert and Eldon's siblings, and they were double cousins then. Another shot of Annadelle. There's John, Adeline, and Ruby. I think Ruby lived with John and Adeline for a while in Texas too, or in Florida too. This must be a shot of elk. Looks like an elk feeding station. That's got to be Ellis Varner and his spray rig. He made that spray rig for his orchards and for his groves in Alturas, Florida. I think he made that spray rig. Gave those trees quite a spraying. This is out in the grove. That's Eileen, pregnant with, I'm not sure who. Probably Brian, or no, probably Annette. That's part of the groves that Alice and Eileen owned. I think they also had a place where they kept some horses. That's Mike and Kevin. Mike on the ground, Kevin on the fence. Yeah, they had some cattle. So that cattle previously was at their place that they had some livestock. Well, I think they mentioned sometime about raising some calves, and that's probably a orphan calf that Ellis raised, and they get to be pets. There's John and Adeline again, I guess at their place. That was in Bartow, where they lived. When they went to Florida, they settled in Bartow, and they remained there till their deaths. There's Grandpa in the back seat. Lots of Florida orange groves. Not sure what this scene is. Well, there's Wendell and Geneva and Gail, Dane, and Wendy. Must have stopped in at Grandma's after church. And they were heading back for the car. We had a 54 Chevy at the time. There's Grandma and Grandpa all dressed up at their front door. Ruby's dog Cinnamon. There's Ruby and her dog Cinnamon. This had to be about 1954, 55. There's Lynn and Vivian Malum, and I guess Roger. That'd have been their oldest son. Okay, now let's see. What's this picture? That's Bob and Laverne Malum's wedding. I'm not sure what church that was. There's another shot of Grandma's roses at her north fence line. Picket fence that we kept painted white. Here's a picture of the tractor and 4-bottom plow sitting at the fuel tank south of the garage at Grandma and Grandpa's place. There's Grandpa plowing away. Man, that was modern machinery back then. He enjoyed farming. Went through some hard years to get to that point. Another shot of Grandma's flowers. She loved flowers. Here's some double exposure, and boy, this is something else. I don't know how Grandma accomplished this. Don't even know the home. That's gotta. I can't tell you who those folks are. It's got to be at a wedding. And how we accomplished double exposure more than I know. There's Ruby and I guess a classmate or maybe the dean of the school. She was going to school up at Bloomington for a while. That's where she met Bill Kepper, her second husband. Must be some graduation exercises. And some marriage deal thrown in there too. There's a 49 Chevrolet. Or a 50 maybe? Whose would that be? Okay, that's Ruby on the left and Beth Kepper with her. She graduated with her. That's Bill Kepper's sister. That's how she met Bill Kepper. Looks like we're back to single exposure. That's good. This is a concrete silo building at the McCoupin Service Company elevator on west edge of Carlinville. They were hoisting concrete for another silo. Or maybe those 4 silos were all connected and built together. I guess that's the construction of that whole project. There's the bucket coming down for more concrete. That's a top view of the construction of the concrete structure. Those farms were just raised as the concrete settled and set up. There's another bucket of concrete going up. I can't remember how long it took to build that structure, but it was a matter of weeks. The old American flag on top. That's typical of any structure that goes up. Okay, that's Uncle Burge sitting. That's at Grandma and Grandpa's place. Here's Grandpa Otto. Got 3 grandchildren on the, 3 on the back on a little pad he had made, and 1 in the seat with him. Down at his place, he's giving the grandkids a ride. Some of the hogs that he had down that area, he raised hogs. Kids like to throw corn to pigs, so that's what they're doing. There's I think Gail, Dane, and I don't know who else. Grandma was holding one baby. I don't know who that'd be. Those aren't clear enough to tell. Maybe on a big screen it'd be visible. This all same setting because there are wives in front. Maybe Kit. That's got to be Nancy and Patty and David. That's Gordon's, or three of Gordon's kids. Okay, that's got to be Janice, Patty, Nancy, and David. That's Gordon and Lucy's kids. Okay, this is a picture of the adults standing in the back row are Gordon, John Fullington, Wendell, Holden, Gail. In front of Wendell is Adeline. Then Lucy appears. Well, no, it's Lucy and Ruby were there, and Berta and Eldon, Eileen and Ellis, and Grandpa. Then we think it's Arlie, Holden, Lisa, and we think it's Butch Reese, Annabelle's husband, standing. There's Ellis coming around the background. And then sweeping back across, we've got Dane sitting on the ground, and Dennis in the green spotted shirt. That's Mike standing, tall kid. And there's Judy with a red blouse, and Brian with a white shirt. There's Janice coming back in front. Some of Gordon's kids. There's a total picture. John, Adeline, Eldon, or Wendell, Geneva, Ruby, Arlen behind, Berta and Eldon behind, Eileen and Ellis behind, Lucy and Gordon behind. And there they got some kids involved. Grandma's holding a baby again. That's probably one of Wendell and Geneva's. Had some good times at Grandma and Grandpa's. Those were the days of Saturday night ice cream. There's Adeline, Ruby, and Eileen with her youngest, Annette, I would imagine. That's at the back door of Grandma and Grandpa's house. Another shot with Annabelle on the left now. Seated in the chairs, Arlen Armour. In front of him is Ellis and his three boys in white shirts. That'd be Kevin, Mike, and Brian. Behind Kevin is Grandpa. Behind the three boys is Uncle Burge Armour. And John Fullings is seated on the right. And up on the stairs is Annabelle, Adeline, Ruby, and Eileen holding Annette.
Aunt Clara?
Yeah, and Aunt Clara sitting in front of Eileen. Here's another shot of Grandpa with one of the grandkids in his lap taking a ride. One of these little Ford tractor. He kept that little Ford tractor down there to use. It's got a cedar on the back of it. Small seed cedar. Just like to take grandkids for a ride once in a while. Here's Ruby. No, that's Annabelle cleaning up their dog bumps. That's right at the corner of the garage down where Grandma and Grandpa were. There's Adeline and her doggie. Must be getting ready to take off. John, Ruby, and Annabelle coming on the scene. There's Grandpa sitting enjoying some of the antics of the kids. Ruby standing. John and Adeline. Here we go. Probably heading for Florida. Okay. I can't recognize. That's Mary Caston on the left. I know her. That's a shot of Mary again. There's Grandpa with his long cigar. He had to show it off a little bit. He enjoyed smoking a cigar once in a while, and he always carried 2 kinds of chew in his pocket on work days. Red Man and Day's Work, and he'd mix the 2 as he chewed them. Those were Hereford cattle across the road from Grandma and Grandpa's. They belonged to the Starr family. That's swinging the camera around looking north. Here's, oh boy, I don't know where we are. Can we read this? Boat rides. Boy, where are we? Lake of the Ozarks. Here is Gordon and Lucy and family. That must be in Albuquerque. Yep. Just getting home from church, I guess. It looks like Grandma and Grandpa's car in their garage. Okay, there's Gordon and his, I'm not sure if that's his brother-in-law or who that would be. Maybe a neighbor taking pictures for him. This is Duke City Tool and Engineering, where Gordon worked for some years. A machine shop in Albuquerque. Looks like they took Grandma and Grandpa and Ruby on a tour on a Sunday, probably when nobody was around. Grandpa with his cigar. This must be still in Albuquerque. Took a picture of a school, I guess. This was probably the first time that Otto and Lydia had been out to Albuquerque. Gordon and Lucy moved down there when their second one was small because she had a heart condition, and the climate took care of it. They lived there the rest of their lives. Lucy was from Minneapolis, and they started their married life up there, but moved down Albuquerque. That's got to be David Gordon and Lucy's son, fourth child. Must be on school day. At the playgrounds. There's a shot of Annadelle. I'm not sure about, it might be one of her boys. don't know if we're still at Albuquerque or if we're in Florida now. There's a shot with Ruby. Grandpa. Evacuation route. Civil Defense evacuation route sign. We're still in Albuquerque because they went up into the mountains and they trout fished and they camped and they had a good time up there. There we're eating our meal at the table. Right by the stream. There's Gordon showing Grandpa some of the good life that they enjoyed out there. They had a camper out there, I think, that they stayed in. Must be still up in the mountains. It was only an hour's drive up into the mountains where they spent their weekends. Back down in Albuquerque. That's got to be Gail and Dane back at Grandma and Grandpa. No. No, we're not back at Grandma and Grandpa's yet. Yes, I guess we are. Yeah, that's Grandma and Grandpa's back door. That's Gail, Dane, and Wendy, I believe. Gotta be about 1955. Go. This is some pictures of Arlie and Alvera's wedding, we think. This is in the church itself. Not very good pictures, but this is what the occasion was. We think the one that you can see on the left is a sister of Alvera's. This is at the reception. That's Wendell and Gail at the end of the table, and Geneva sitting across from him, and Alvera sitting across from him, and Arlie sitting next to her.
There's Gail's one of the dancers.
Yeah,
there
Gail's
she is
one of the
pink.
dancers. Yeah.
Don't know who that is. Here's there goes my mom and dad, Herman and Claire Fonke.
There's Arlie and Wendell, probably. Yeah. These are pictures of Clarence Sale and Ellen Caston's wedding. Ellen would be a niece of Grandma Armour, Lydia. This is pictures of at the reception. A lot of these people we don't know. They're on the Sale side, but There's Mary Caston appearing in on the left side of the picture. That's Irene Allen, and Irene, that's Grandma Armour's sister.
Oh, and then wrapping gifts. No, somebody serving cake.
Looked like gift unwrapping, didn't it? That's Ellen and Clarence. The wedding was held at Raymond, Illinois. That was Clarence's home. Picture of the married couple cutting a cake, feeding each other that first delicious piece. Another shot of the people at the reception. Must be the end of that segment. Boy, I don't know who this one is. We're at the back steps of Grandma and Grandpa's again. There's Alice and Eileen and Mike, Kevin. There's more. Who? That's got to be Annette, Alice and Eileen's youngest. Okay, there's Uncle Verge sitting on the left and Aunt Clara sitting up above. That's Dennis on the right, and okay, there's another shot of Uncle Verge. There's Gordon, checkered shirt. Lucy behind him. Aunt Clara sitting up behind. Grandpa Armour on the right. There's Judy. There's Dennis on the left. There's Lucy on the left now. Eileen and Alice in the background, and there's Grandpa Otto and is that Dane? I'm not sure. I believe it is. That's got to be Aunt Clara and Uncle Verge. Yep. That's Grandpa Armour's half-brother, Virgil Armour. He was proud of his Chevrolets. Had a new black one. That's John Armour living in his, he was proud of that Chevrolet too. That's about a 49 two-door hardtop. I think he was going to Eastern Illinois College at that time. About a 50 Chevrolet, I believe. Okay, there's Judy. That's up at Eldon and Verda's place. There's Dennis riding his bicycle. And must have had the chain off. This is taking up their place. Eldon had a 57 Chevrolet at the time. He had bought it new. It was a nice car. And Dennis with his Bucky. He called that sheep. Picture of Verda and is it Judy? It's up at their front of their home. Hula hooping, Judy and Dennis. They had it figured out. There's a shot of Arlie trying to hula hoop. He's doing all right. This is down at Grandma's place. And cousins had a good time at Grandma's. This must have been about 1956, 57, 58, along in there. Another shot of John Fullington. Let's see if we can figure these out. Okay, there's Bill Kepper and Ruby. Bill and Ruby were married by this time. There's that's got to be a view taken from west of Grandma and Grandpa's house. Now we're looking north and starting to swing north and east. Coming back to the house. Oh boy, what do we got here? There's the add line. There's Ruby, but I don't recognize some of those other ladies. I think that's Eileen and 3 of her kids. I think this is at Eileen's place. Well, that's Judy. The gal is Judy, and then Mike is a taller boy, and Kevin, and yep, that's at Eileen's place. That's the front of the house. That carport was later turned into a living quarters, and then they built more carport on the east, or on the right side of the house. That's another shot of the front of Ellis and Eileen's house in Alturas, Florida. Got one on the roof. Must have climbed up the tree. Eldon and Berta were there. That's their car, and Grandma and Grandpa's car. Must have had a thumb over the lens. Or a finger. This is where we get a rest because it's unrecognizable. That's John and Adeline's car. I don't know whose that would be. That's Eldon and Verda's car. This is still at Alturas, Florida, I think. Yep. There's Adeline, John, Annadelle. I guess her first husband, Butch Reese. But I don't know the occasion. There's that's Annadelle and Butch Reese on the left, on her left. Maybe that was their wedding. I'm not sure. Must have been. There's Grandpa, Grandma, Annadelle, Butch, and Della and Walter Fullington. That would be John Fullington's parents. And Verda Fullington Armour's parents. Don't have very many shots of Walter and Della Fullington, but there's another one where they were at Grandma and Grandpa's, if I can catch it. It's just a small glimpse. There's, looks like Grandpa down there waving his arm. Okay, there's Mike on the right, Kevin, no shirt. There's Judy, Eldon, Verda's daughter. Looks like Adeline's relaxing. There's Grandpa Armour again, Otto. He always had that weather-beaten look. He was an outside man. Even in his later years, he was always outside doing something. He thought that when you had motion pictures, you had to be in motion, so he'd wave his arms once in a while. There's Dennis in the foreground. I think that's Eileen and Ellis on the opposite side of the table. Grandpa was sitting with his back to us. There's, I guess, Grandma sitting there. I think Grandpa was manning the camera at that time. I'm sure it was that was at Grandma and Grandpa's place. I'm pretty sure. Now, where are we? Looks like we're at a motel. Yeah, Driftwood Motel. That's in Bartow, Florida. There's Ruby and Adeline. Here comes John on the right and Grandpa on the left. It's at the shopping mall down there in Bartow, down there by the Driftwood Motel area. What are we doing now? Looks like Mike and Kevin, maybe. There's Grandpa and John Fullington. It's got to be Dennis. I guess we're still in Florida. Eldon and Verda and Wendell and Geneva live closer to parents Otto and Lydia, so that's probably the reason for more pictures of those families. That's probably a school in Bartow. We must be on the road again. Okay, there's Ruby, and I'm not sure who the youngster was. Well, there's Wendell, and probably, is that Eldon, Grandpa? That's Wendell on the right. That's Arlie on the left. Sitting out in Grandpa's yard. There's Geneva. At the back door, we're going somewhere. That's Bill Kepper, and Berta, and Judy. It looks like Ruby out picking mulberries, or Geneva. That's what Geneva loved, those mulberries down at Grandma and Grandpa's. Grandkids had a lot of fun at Grandma and Grandpa's. Got to know their cousins. Mike is the biggest one there on the left. There's Ruby and Geneva with probably Wendy. That's Eldon. Dennis smoking their corncob pipes or their stick pipes or whatever. Let's see, whose gravesite would this be? Would this be 59 at Grandpa's grave? Grandpa Otto died in 59. I think that might be Arlie packing up. He was moving to Florida probably. That's still John Ladline's car. They had her loaded this time. Wow. Trying to get back to whose gravesite that was. That it was probably Grandpa Otto Armour's, 59. And I'm not sure about all these trips. We need Grandma Armour here to narrate this instead of me. This is a notch dam that was built on the farm in 1959, in fall of 1959, after Otto passed away. We had started the project before he died, and after he died, Wendell and Eldon and Frank Armour finished it up. That's a notch dam built in a gully that controlled soil erosion. The notch was 20 feet wide and 32 inches high. This is 2006, and the structure still stands and works today. It controls a ditch 1,800 feet long. There we're working the ground on the sides of the waterway, getting ready to seed it. That's looking north and west toward the farmstead. That's coming down to the structure. That 1,800 foot long gully was healed up, and it's 9/10 of a foot of fall to about 1,000 feet, and then a foot of fall from there on. That's 9/10 of a foot of fall to the 100 feet, and a foot of fall to the 100 feet. There's a picture of the dozer working below the dam, smoothing the ground up below the dam, shaping it. We've since run a 6-inch tile up that 1,800 feet to help keep it dried up and controlled. Let's see, where is this taken? I'm not sure about this. It's got to be Adeline, so it must be down in Florida at their place. In Bartow. Adeline loved flowers and plants too, and they were in abundance at her place. There's a picture of Della and Walter and John and Adeline. That's John Fullington's parents. They must have motored to Florida to see him too. I guess at the same time my folks were down there. We're scanning. Must be a school. There was Arlie and Alvera right there. This must be where they lived. They lived in an apartment down there at that time, I think. I'm not sure about those two. Where they are. Must be on a picnic. There's Della Fullington, John's mother.